we are going to see a wave when things start to get back to normal, because people are like elephants. They remember how they were treated. And what's going to happen is they're going to remember how their boss didn't talk to them. Their boss just kind of disappeared, was missing in action. And they're going to say, there's got to be better out there.
This is the Rebel HR Podcast. If you're a professional looking for innovative, thought-provoking information in the world of human resources, this is the right podcast for you. All right, Rebel Human Resources listeners, I'm extremely excited to introduce you to our guest today, Jeff Kortes. Jeff has been an influential speaker in my life personally, and I'm excited to share some of his content with all of you. He's an employee retention speaker and an employee loyalty expert, and he likes to teach you how to give your employees crap. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Hey, it's great to be here. I always love to talk to people about how to give employees caring, respect, appreciation, and praise. I mean, it's the element that really drives employee retention and employee loyalty. And the more crap you give your people, the better off they are.
So for those not taking notes, CRAP stands for caring, respect, appreciation, and praise.
Yeah, you better say it again, because otherwise people say, what? Why would you give your employees crap, right?
Right. Well, I work in manufacturing, so we give a lot of crap here, but it still speaks to me.
Okay, well, and I spent time in manufacturing, construction, even in high tech, and the element of caring, respect, appreciation, and praise is necessary in every business. I mean, and I've got two sons that are in healthcare. Both are doctors, and they talk about the fact that there's not enough of it, and people thrive on it.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about kind of your organization and what prompted you to start to focus on CRAP.
Well, I spent 25 years in human resources, and when I was 50, I decided that I had enough. I got downsized, got a great package, and said, I want to do something differently. And I started a search firm, because I was never impressed with a lot of search firms that I worked with, and very successful. And a colleague of mine said, well, why don't you start speaking about recruitment? And then we started talking, and then I realized I knew a lot about employee retention and loyalty because of the industries I'd work with. And I started speaking on employee retention and loyalty. And one day I'm driving down I-94 heading east to Detroit to speak at the Chrysler Corporation. And I used all these elements, and I like praise, attention, or appreciation, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, crap. And I rolled it out at Chrysler, and I said, you got to give your employees crap. And the meeting planner, her jaw just dropped. And one guy in the back of the audience says, well, we do plenty of that at Chrysler. And I thought, oh boy, I stepped in it. But anyway, I started talking about caring, respect, appreciation, and praise. And what happened is at the very end, one of the vice presidents got up and said, look, he says, if you don't remember anything, you want to give your employees crap. And I realized that it was a fun way to talk about a very serious topic. And then I started talking more and more on employee retention, and that's how things have evolved. I mean, I still do search work. I do a lot of search work in the manufacturing area, but I realized, because of the industries I'd worked in, that I knew a lot about employee retention and loyalty. And I started talking on it, refined my skills on the platform, and before I know it, now if you type in employee retention speaker, I'm the number one on Google.
There you go. Great headline.
Yeah, no, I mean, I never thought it would happen, but the more I work with organizations, the more I've helped organizations, um, I realized that this is my niche, and it's really kind of about culture. But I focus because employee retention and loyalty is where the money is for organizations, and where the need is. That's what I focus on. I do a deep dive into crap, is what I tell people.
Yeah, but what a critical, what a critical thing to focus on, especially in the 2020 post 2020 era, where if you aren't caring, respecting, appreciating, and praising your employees through one of the more challenging periods that we can recall, you're going to set yourself up for some potentially painful time down the road.
I would agree, and I think the other thing is it's not even so much about the pain that organizations experience. People are experiencing a lot of pain right now, um, and they need crap. They need
Yeah,
more crap than they've ever had in their, that caring and that appreciation, that praise. They need it more than they've ever needed it before. Because I mean, we talk about all the mental health issues. We talk about the isolation. It's tough, and if you're not giving your people crap, you're right. To your point, you're setting yourself up for um, a lot of turnover when this thing starts to normalize. But besides that, your people need you.
right. Yeah, so I want to explore that a little bit more. A lot of times as an HR practitioner or as business leaders, we think about people being loyal or not, and there's a stigma for what we would call job hoppers and that sort of thing. So why don't we talk a little bit about how crap can drive loyalty and how loyalty really is kind of goes both ways.
Well, and I believe that uh, companies have killed employee loyalty, not employees. And when I say that to a lot of leaders in organizations, you can tell them you can see them getting uncomfortable. But people want to be loyal. If you show them that you care, you respect them, you give them appreciation and praise, people will stick around. It's not that people want to leave. I mean, there's other things like growth and communication and other things that I talk about. And, I'll do a plug for my book called Give Your Employees Crap and Seven Other Secrets to Employee Retention. There's other things that are involved, but caring, respect, appreciation, and praise is really the linchpin. And if you're doing that, people are loyal. People are incredibly loyal. I mean, I see it because I'm a headhunter. I mean, and I tell people, who better to talk about employee loyalty than somebody who steals talent for a living? And what I find is that companies kill employee loyalty. It's not that people don't want to be loyal.
I guess the other area that I hear a lot of noise around related to loyalty is this perception that there's a lack of loyalty in certain generations. Have you found that to be true, or is it more related to an employer's culture?
Actually, it's not even so much anecdotally what I found is, but statistically, when you analyze the figures, and my young colleague that I speak with all the time on a millennial topic, he talks about the fact that millennials are no less loyal than other groups of people. Uh, but they see a few people that are job hoppers, and they draw the conclusion that they're all job hoppers. And that's not the case. I mean, I've placed people as a headhunter in organizations, and we're talking 4, 5, 6 years later, they're still there. And the mindset is, oh, if I place a millennial, they're going to be gone in 18 months. It depends on the organization, and I'm blessed that I've got clients that not only are they good search clients, but they give their employees crap. So people come and they stay and they grow and they evolve with the organization. So I don't think it's, again, the statistics say I'm right. And anecdotally, what I see is if you treat people right, they are not going to leave.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's give them a reason to stay, don't give them a reason to leave, kind of a kind of an approach,
Right.
right?
Well, I use a term called a MOHI, a moment of high influence. Leaders, somebody's boss does something that so angers an employee that they go home, they crank up the computer, go into one of the job boards, put their resume up.
Yep.
It's a moment of high influence. And if supervisors are aware of what those things are that they're doing, they can avoid them. And it's part of just being a great boss. I mean, if you're a great boss, moments of high influence don't occur. Or even if the organization, if senior leadership does a moment of high influence and does something that angers somebody, to the average employee, their immediate boss is the organization. And they can do a tremendous amount to, I'll say, buffer things that happen from a senior level. Because who do you work for? Who do you see every day? It's your boss.
Mm-hmm.
And if your boss is giving you crap, you got a pretty good gig.
We'll be back after a quick break.
And so used to having everything in front of them right away that we forget that innovation just takes time. I myself, I get frustrated too. Why? And this as being one of my best friends is, hey, I talk to you all the time. Hey, man, I'm frustrated in the fact that I can't seem to just get there in the next day. But that's just not how these things work, right? Innovation needs to be planned out. It needs to be very methodical. And then when it finally hits, that's when it seems like to everyone else that it sort of just came out of nowhere. But to you, the amount of dedication that it took over that time.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a great point. And coming from your perspective, you know the talent acquisition game inside and out. Those are the people you want, the ones that, they had a bad interaction.
Oh yeah,
they're motivated. There's some buying signals there on the job you're selling, right?
right. Yeah, no, I mean, we love it. My recruiter and I, when we call in an organization and we start talking and say, well, what's your boss like? And we get this pause. We know there's something wrong with it. Well, talk to me about your boss. And we ask them. And we also realize, say, well, how, and in my case, I have a very small list of clients, and I know the bosses, I know the hiring managers, and then we're able to talk to them about the hiring managers that they go to work for, and all of a sudden, they say, "Yeah, I'm interested."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
you just got to listen, because there are a lot of lousy bosses out there. I don't know if you've ever heard the stat, but they say that 75% of the people in this country say the worst thing about their job is their boss.
Mm.
I mean, that's scary.
That's shocking. That's sad.
That's sad. It's sad.
That's sad.
But uh, so when I work with organizations on employee retention, I tell supervisors, I said, your job is to be in that 25%.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're in that 25%, not only will people stay, they'll walk through walls for you.
Right.
And there's a difference between employee retention and loyalty. Retention is when people stay. Loyalty is when they'll stay and they'll follow you voluntarily.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it made me feel a lot better knowing that we only have to be better, 25% of
You don't have to be that great. It's like I don't know if you've heard the one about the Boy Scouts in the woods and the bear, right? Right? And the one guy says, "No," he says, "the bear's going to catch us," and the other guy says, "No," he says, "As long as I'm faster than you, I'm in good shape." Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, you've heard that one before, so
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, that's what HR is. It's just trying to not be the slowest person running away from
right.
the crisis.
That's scary.
We aspire to a little bit higher
I
standard than
hope
that,
so.
but it does make me feel a little bit better.
Oh
But I
wow.
think your point is well taken, and it's funny because I haven't actively looked for a job in years. I've had a job change, but it was a headhunter that
Right.
did some outreach, and I may have had a moment of high influence that occurred in a former life. Um, but at the end of the day, if I leave work and I'm just over it, all I have to do is open up my Gmail, and I get like 6 job alerts a day from ZipRecruiter or some
Oh yeah.
other job site aggregator that just spams my email. But if one of these days I have a bad day and I just open up the email, oh, there's one right there. Well,
Yeah.
that's
Moment of
interesting.
high influence.
Yeah, I mean it's there, and I tell that to managers who think that they people are easily replaceable. Um, well, not really,
No.
but they're really easy to lose,
Exactly.
and and that's just the new world we live in. So if you're not actively working on this stuff, you're gonna see people flee. I mean, it's just so easy, even in post-COVID world. Uh,
Oh, they're still
you know,
fleeing now.
people, yeah, yeah, and especially the companies that didn't take care of their employees
Yeah.
or didn't manage it, in a way that was empathetic and caring and respectful and all of the elements of crap. I think, yeah, we need it now more than ever.
We are going to see a wave when things start to get back to normal because people are like elephants. They remember how they were treated. And what's going to happen is they're going to remember how their boss didn't talk to them. Their boss just kind of disappeared, was missing in action, and they're going to say, "There's got to be better out there." And they'll
Hmm.
go onto the job board, and they'll be gone in 60 days. And
Yeah,
I think that's the things that organizations don't realize uh, is is going on. They're planting the seeds for a disaster down the road.
right. Yeah, that's been one of the biggest challenges. It's that balancing act between giving good direction, being empathetic, being flexible, but not being so flexible that you lose
Right,
capability to get things done.
right.
And then I think the other big issue that a lot of us are going to face is we have essential and flexible workers working together. So, if we aren't managing working from home and flexibility and some of these things appropriately, there's going to be a division between
Oh,
those
there
groups
is.
of individuals.
I've got several manufacturing clients, and in one particular case, the managers who are it's funny, the leaders who are working out of their house, who are non-essential. I put that in air quotes, right? And people on the manufacturing floor are there cranking out product. Well, these managers were talking on the phone before the conversation with their weekly staff meeting, and talking about how great it is to be able to throw the laundry in, and or when I take a break during lunch, I can extend it a little bit and mow the lawn and things like that. Well, word got out that that discussion had taken place, and the divide that it started to create with the people on the shop floor and these people was tremendous. And to the credit of the general manager, who actually happened to be a former boss of mine, so I've trained him well. Uh, he uh, he jumped in and said, "Look, people," he says, "you're not working out of the house because so that it makes it easy for you. You know, you're still doing a job, but." Fortunately, as a senior leader, he dealt with the issue because he recognized that the divide could destroy his culture. And he dealt with it. But I see that in a lot of places they're not dealing with it. And you're going to see that cultural divide. You're going to see that animosity between it. I'll say in some ways, a lot of leaders and people that may even work for them. It's scary. It's an amazing situation that I run into. And I mean, some places are able to deal with it, other places are not. Uh, but that's where you really got to step up and say, I've got to talk to my people. I've got to talk to my leaders and explain to them that they are really truly leaders. Uh, and part of that is if you're thinking something, you need to watch what you say. Um, but if stupidity was illegal, a lot of people would be in jail. And
I know we've all had that situation where, we said that thing and we wish we could put it back.
yeah, well, again, these were all managers talking amongst each other, and this general manager called me. He's Jeff. He said, "You're not going to believe this," and he started unloading on me because, like I said, I'd worked for this guy earlier in my career, and he says, "What's with these people?"
Hmm.
He was just kind of in shock, and I find myself in that role a lot. I mean, talking with clients because, like a general manager, who can the general manager talk to, or even the HR people? Who can the HR
Right.
people talk to? So they'll call me and
Right.
say, "Jeff, I got this going on. What do you think?"
Right.
It's kind of an interesting situation.
Yeah, I think that's that is part of the reason that we started this podcast is to have a little bit of an outlet and connection with other HR professionals because a lot of times it's isolated and it's hard. You're dealing
It
with
is.
emotional topics and when emotions get high, things get said. Um, I think the other piece there too is it's like okay, so you're going to say something stupid at some point in your life. It's just the
Right.
way it is. We're all human, right?
Right.
But if you say it and you don't have remorse for it and you don't circle back and apologize to somebody for something that maybe popped out that you didn't mean to pop out and like you weren't like human about it,
Right. No, I agree. I
you
agree.
just
I
made it
think,
worse. Made
yeah,
it worse.
I mean, admitting you're wrong is one of the things that builds respect. Admitting you're wrong and say, hey, I made a mistake. That builds respect. And if a manager would do that with their people, yeah, you can take a negative and turn it into a positive.
Yeah, and it's I look at it as it's almost like it's a factor of integrity and trust and honesty.
Hmm.
If you own it, they might not like that you said it, but you owned it. It doesn't mean that they love it.
Well, it'll take you a
And
while to dig out of that hole, but but
yeah,
but
yeah,
the point is at least you'll be able to dig out of the hole.
absolutely. And I think that's that's part of the challenge of just of dealing with humans in general is the fact that we all have a capacity to do things in a really positive way. We also have the capacity to do things in a really negative way,
Right.
and a lot of it's just the awareness of that, right?
Yeah, no, it's funny because I had a boss who was a VP of HR at one point. He always said, Jeff, he says, HR would be a great field if we didn't have to deal with people.
Absolutely, yeah. When there's not the humans to resource, man, my job gets easy.
Yeah, right. And unnecessary.
The other slant on that, I used to have a mentor who shall remain nameless, but the common joke was, HR, we're here to take the H out of HR.
Oh, man.
And it was tongue in cheek. We didn't actually do that, but that was that was kind of the perception. When I first started in the career, we were kind of the policy police. We were
Yep.
admin, and we were the principal's office when things went sideways.
Yep.
And I don't think that's going to work anymore. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I joke about the fact that, you and I were chatting about it before the call. I'm so old that I remember when my first job, I was the personnel assistant.
Oh yeah, old
And,
school.
yeah, I mean, really old school. And then in some ways, it evolved to employee relations, and I, I like better human resources. But the name of my firm is Human Asset Management because I believe that people are assets, and
Right.
I think that you protect your assets, you take care of your assets, you preserve your assets, and I think that's the way organizations need to think about things because uh, people are assets, and whereas resources you use up.
That's a great point.
You know, and again, that's always been my mindset. I guess you talk about the rebel human resources. I'll say I was talking about this stuff 30 years ago, and people looked at me like I was a lunatic. And I like to think I was ahead of my time.
Yeah, and I mean that's what we're all about here is it's that innovation, but a lot of what we talk about it's really just common sense.
It is.
If you really stop and think about it, like let's not overthink this thing.
Yep. Yeah, well, and I use the term and again I was fortunate. I was blessed. I worked for some great bosses years ago. When I was 25, I had I had a boss of mine tell me, Jeff, let's forget fancy fads. Let's focus on the fundamentals. And if you keep coming back to the fundamentals, and again, things you got to grow and you got to adapt those things, and they're nuanced. But if you come back to the fundamentals, I mean, in my LinkedIn blog, I talk about all this all the time. It's just simple stuff.
Yeah,
It's just not easy. Yeah, pulling it
absolutely.
all together and doing it day in and day out is the toughest part. Um, but it's about fundamentals.
Yeah, well, I think you and I must have had very similar mentors when we started out, but I distinctly remember at my first job out of college, I had a great mentor, and everybody loved the guy, and he was just just a really logical thinker and really easy, could break down things into simple, easy to understand principles. And one of those was make sure that I was in retail at the time, make sure the store looks good, make sure the shelves are full, and respect everybody. That's it. That's
Yep.
all we do here. you know,
Well, yeah,
and
yeah.
that was it.
I mean, the whole respect thing is huge. I mean, that's one of my things. As a matter of fact, it's interesting. I just built a new presentation called "Respect." It's more than just a song
Yeah.
because I had clients come to me and say, we talk about caring, respect, appreciation, and praise, but can you do a deep dive into respect? And because of several clients, I started doing that, and because oftentimes people don't want to disrespect people, but they do it by accident.
Hmm.
They do stupid stuff, kind of like these managers on the call. And so what happened was I said, okay, what are the elements that really go into respect on a day-to-day basis when you are on the job? How can you demonstrate respect to your coworkers, to your people, to your boss? And because respect is just huge from a standpoint of keeping people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's interesting. The term respect, it can almost have a little bit of a negative connotation as well. I mean, I'll give you an example. So when I have a robust debate with my wife, and I say, I just wish you would respect my opinion, it doesn't necessarily fly very well. It can be misperceived as like demanding respect, and
Yep.
I think respect is so much deeper than just using the word, right? It's all about the actions.
Well, I tell people it's really about two things. It's about what is your thought process and what are your actions. I mean,
Hmm.
how do you think about how you treat people, and then how do you act? I mean, uh, ultimately, it's about how you act. I mean, because if you act the way you're supposed to and give people respect, uh, you've accomplished a lot, but again, a lot of managers don't realize they're doing things that are disrespecting people.
Hmm.
And that's how, again, I had a clients come to me and say, hey, can you build something on respect, simply because of the fact that they had managers that wanted to respect people but didn't know how. As crazy as that might sound, but
Yeah, so let's. I'm curious to hear, and feel free to share as much as you're comfortable sharing. But give me an example of like a something that you've observed or something you've heard where somebody has kind of unintentionally disrespected somebody, and then how do you fix that?
well, I think the biggest element that I see with disrespect is micromanaging. And I talk
Mm,
about this and give your employees crap. When I was up at your SHRM chapter, is we do things. We're looking over somebody's shoulder, and they're competent, but we send the message that they're not, because we're looking at every nitty gritty little detail. I mean,
hmm
and I see that as being one of the biggest things that that is a way to disrespect people. And I think the only way that a manager can correct it is if they get the feeling that they're micromanaging somebody, is to ask their people, hey, am I too involved? And that's hard to do.
hmm
Am I too involved? Um, and then if the person says, well, yeah, you are, you got to have the courage to say, well, how so? Oftentimes we get defensive. You know,
Yeah.
um, and you've went through my micromanager checklist. I spoke up in your SHRM chapter, is
Yep.
it was designed because a lot of managers don't realize that they're micromanaging until they go through the items that are indicators of micromanagement, and all of a sudden they say, whoa, I didn't realize. Again, they don't want to disrespect somebody, but then they realize that they're micromanaging them, and that sends the message that they don't trust them.
Absolutely. I think it goes, on a broader level. HR, a lot of natural and established HR practices could be perceived as micromanagement. I know I hear that from time to time.
Yep.
Things like, wage increase approval processes with, levels and layers of administrative approval required. There are reasons for that, very good reasons for that. But, that's one of the things I push back on is, take a look at your policies and workflows and approvals required, and are you sending your leadership team the message that you don't trust them?
Yeah. I think that's an important point. Or the other one I look at is work rules. Right? We have
Hmm.
we have work rules, and I have found that what works better than work rules is coming up with a list of what I call positive behaviors. Talking about the fact that we will be on time for meetings. It's not saying don't be late. It's saying be on time for meetings. It frames it in a positive perspective, as opposed to being like the police.
Right.
These are the behaviors we want, as opposed to don't do this and don't do that. Then HR becomes the cop.
Yeah, I don't want to be
Right. Exactly.
a No, that's great. That's great advice. And I think it's such a balancing act on on that micromanagement front. But as I reflect on interactions that have gone sideways, a lot of times it can stem from that micromanagement and really a feeling of being disrespected in one way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah. And once somebody feels like they're disrespected, it's tough to walk that back.
Absolutely. All right. So one of the things I want to talk about a little bit, because I'm curious. I understand that you have a new book here hitting the shelves here called HR Horror Stories.
Right.
I know I don't know how many conversations I have with HR professionals where we go, we should write a book.
Yeah, right.
So is this the book?
This is the book. I mean, what it's called HR Horror Stories: True Tales from the Trenches. They're all real stories, and the leadership lessons I learned as a result of what took place. And some things were things that happened to me as opposed to me doing them. Yeah. Or some of them were me doing things that I didn't do that I should have done, that created the horror stories. And I actually decided to write the book because I thought it would be fun. Um,
Hmm.
because it's really not in the my niche is the employee retention and loyalty. But I thought about it, this a lot of employee retention and loyalty is driven by how leaders behave. And so I thought, well, this would be a compliment to it. And besides, I thought it would be fun. And I've got two more stories I've got to put in, and then it's going to be ready to go. So I'm hoping during the holiday season I'm going to be able to finish those stories. It's all set up and everything, and then it's going to be ready to go. Uh, yeah, hit the you got to put it up on Kindle and that sort of thing. I mean, I'm self-publishing, so
Cool.
yeah,
We'll have to check it out. Yeah, we'll make sure that we put that in the show notes if we get a release.
I'll
But
get you a copy.
yeah, perfect. I love that. I learned so much from the stories. And I think that's anybody who is fascinated by human behavior. It's all about these narrative events, and a lot of times I learn more from well, at least personally, from my mistakes than I do from
Right,
doing something right.
right. No, mistakes and I mean, when I speak, my whole thing is I tell tons of stories. The advantage of being my age, okay, I put that in air quotes, is advantage of being my age is I've gone through a lot, and so I have a lot of good stories, and people remember stories, they learn from stories, and that's my goal when I speak to a group is to have people learn and have people do things as a result of what they've learned, as opposed to saying, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting." I want people to take that knowledge and apply it on the job because uh, that way they'll be successful, and that to me is my success.
Absolutely. So as far as the as far as the horror stories are concerned, give me a flavor of an example of of a horror story that you think would resonate with our audience.
Oh, yeah, I'll give you one that it speaks to the employee retention issue. I worked, I was doing a contract job in North Carolina, and I was walking down the hall, and my assistant said, "Jeff, we need you in the plant." And I could tell just the way she said it wasn't good. And I ran into the plant, and one of our employees in the packaging department was standing there, and she had a towel wrapped around her hand, and there was a pool of blood below the towel.
Mm,
And what happened is because we'd been running short staffed, uh, everybody was rushing. She had reached into the packaging machine and got her hand caught in the packaging machine. That's the bottom line.
mm,
And it was a situation where ultimately everybody said, well, it was operator error. But the reality was it was the fact that it was an employee retention issue.
mm.
You dig deeper, and I mean, yeah, that's probably one of the, um, I'll say the more, I'll say grisly stories that I've got. It probably is the grisliest
Mm,
story, but
mhm.
again, there's a deeper lesson than operator error, and that's what I try to bring out with all the stories in there. I mean, what is it that you can learn as a human resource leader that you can use to make a difference, or for that matter, as a supervisor? Because
Right.
but that's yeah that's one of the stories. That's the one that that always kind of pops to mind because I use that story when I do a program called Creating a Culture of Crap. Uh, and that's one of the stories that I use to get people to sit up and listen so that they take what I talk about and take it to heart.
Yeah, and I think it's it's being extremely accountable to the environment that you created as an employer,
Hmm. Yeah,
as opposed to just pointing fingers, right?
right. I mean, and again, that was I love what you said is being accountable as an employer, uh, because it's easy to say operator error. It's hard to
Yeah.
take a good hard look at yourself and say, wait a second, we've been running short staff, people are rushing. That's the true
Yeah, and it's a
cause.
lot harder to admit it,
Yeah,
right? Because if staffing is short, guess who owns that? HR.
yeah, exactly.
And that's, I mean, it is what it is. Now mistakes may have been made by the individual, but that environment wouldn't have been there had you done your job, right?
Right.
And I mean, that's a harsh
That's
truth to answer
tough.
for yourself. Yeah,
That's tough.
that's a great point. And yeah, unfortunately, I've had to deal with grisly situations like that. Being from the world of manufacturing, not frequently, thank goodness, but there's always an underlying reason. There's always something beyond behavior.
It's deeper.
There's always something there.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got you
Right.
got to dig in.
Exactly.
Great point. Great point. This is just a great conversation. I could keep going for another 2 hours here, but I want to be respectful of your time. So we're going to shift gears into the Rebel HR Flash Round. All right. So Flash Round question number 1: what are you reading right now?
Right now, I am reading Killing Jesus. I've read all the Killing series because I'm a big history buff. But for some reason, I had never read Killing Jesus, so I decided, coming into the Christmas holidays, uh, I wanted to read that. So I'm reading Killing Jesus by Bill O'Reilly.
I don't think I could get away with having that book on my nightstand with my kids around. It might be.
Probably not.
I have to hide it. I put it in the
But I'm
nightstand
an empty
drawer. And
nester, so I don't have that
there
problem.
you go. Yeah, yeah. Or it would be even worse if it was Killing Santa.
Oh,
That would put it over the edge.
exactly.
All right, question number 2: who should we be listening to?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Me. I mean, you need to be following me on LinkedIn. I do 4 blogs a week. Uh, yeah, again, I'm all about employee retention. I'm kind of an employee retention loyalty geek. I mean, I can get excited about employee retention, but yeah, no, because employee retention is going to be one of the biggest challenges that people face in the next decade. So, my goal is to offer a lot of value, so that people say, you know what, this makes sense. I need to change. Kind of like we talked about, looking at yourself with the hand situation I described. But yeah, yeah, you need to be listening to me, most definitely.
All right. Last question: how can our listeners connect with you?
You can get me at jeffkortes.com. That's spelled Kortes. Uh, and yeah, drop me an email. There's some great resources on the website. You can sign up for my blog, which goes out every 2 weeks. Uh, I'm all employee retention all the time. So if that's something that you want to learn more about and whatever, but the website's great because I've got a lot of resources that are free. Um, because I feel if I add value to folks, people will say, maybe, man, I need to bring this guy in. He could really add something extra for us.
Yeah. Yeah, and on a personal note, so for anybody listening to this that isn't aware, so I've heard Jeff speak twice now, and it's great content, and that some of the stories and some of the tips I was fortunate to hear early in my career in HR and incorporate them, and they've continued through my career to build success and help me help my employees. So strongly encourage you to connect with Jeff, listen to some of the advice, and listen and learn.
Kyle, I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me on. The more people I can reach, the more people I can help.
I appreciate it. Look forward to it. We'll have all your information in the show notes. Jeff Kortes, thank you so much for joining us today.
Remember, give your employees crap because crap works.
And I'm full of crap, so here we go.
All right. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, that does it for the Rebel HR podcast. Big thank you to our guests. Follow us on Facebook at Rebel HR Podcast, Twitter at Rebel HR Guy, or see our website at rebelhumanresources.com. The views and opinions expressed by Rebel HR Podcast are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any of the organizations that we represent. No animals were harmed during the filming of this podcast.
Baby.